our son started learning guitar. He practiced quietly, just 20 minutes a day. One afternoon, the neighbor pounded on the wall and yelled, "If I hear one more twang, I'm calling CPS for noise abuse." I thought he was joking, until a social worker came to our door. "Anonymous complaint," she said. I knew it was him. My son stopped playing. Days later, I walked past his house and heard the sound of a guitar. His son. Playing the same song mine had practiced. Only louder. We live in Spokane Valley, Washington. Quiet area. Families, retirees, decent-sized backyards, and no big city noise. We bought our house in 2020, right when everything felt uncertain. We wanted stability for our son, Eli. He's our only child. He's soft-spoken, polite to a fault, and never the kind of kid to stir up trouble. That's why what happened tore into me like nothing else. Eli got interested in guitar after a school project. They were studying American music. He came home talking about Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan. One day he asked for a guitar. We didn't have much money to throw around, but I found a decent used one on Sprague Avenue, down at a pawn shop that smells like old carpet and gun oil. He was so excited. But nervous, too. He didn't touch it for the first week. Then he started learning slowly from YouTube. Just a few minutes a day. Nothing aggressive, just finger-picking simple songs. We told him 20 minutes was enough. Let your fingers rest, don't overdo it. We live in a single-story house. Nothing fancy. The walls aren't paper-thin, but you can hear a dog bark next door if you're listening for it. Greg Mason lives right beside us. Retired cop. Early 60s. Stocky. Big voice. Buzz cut. Wife is quiet, never smiles. They've got one son, Austin, around 15, maybe 16. Greg is the kind of guy who keeps his truck spotless, flies a faded American flag out front, and looks at you like you don't belong, even if you're just pulling weeds in your own yard. He never liked us. I don't know why. Maybe because we keep to ourselves. Maybe because Eli isn't into sports or loud stuff. Whatever it was, the man never warmed up. We tried waving. Got nothing but stares. So one afternoon, Eli's sitting in the living room, playing the intro to Smoke on the Water. I'm in the kitchen, just listening to him, proud as hell. Then, out of nowhere, we hear this loud thump against the living room wall. Like a fist hitting it. Then a yell, "If I hear one more twang, I'm calling CPS for noise abuse." It was Greg. No doubt. I looked at the wall like it had just spoken. My wife came in from the laundry room, wide-eyed. We were stunned. I laughed, because it seemed too stupid to be serious. It wasn't. 2 days later, a knock at the door. A woman from Child Protective Services. She showed a badge and said there was an anonymous complaint. Said someone reported that a child in our home was being forced to make excessive noise. I asked her what that meant. She couldn't answer directly. She just said it was about potential abuse through noise exposure or coercion to perform. I wanted to scream. She was professional. Kind, even. Said we didn't seem like the type, but she had to follow up. She asked a few questions. Looked around. Talked to Eli. Checked for signs of distress. Asked if he was okay, if he was being made to play the guitar. He said no. He said he liked it. She left without incident, but that didn't matter. The damage was done. Eli stopped playing. He didn't say it was because of the visit, but I knew. I could see it in his face. He didn't touch the guitar for over a week. Then he quietly moved it into his closet and shut the door. Like it was something to be ashamed of. I was crushed. But I tried to be the adult. Told myself to let it go. Until I was walking the dog past Greg's house about a week later. His living room window was cracked open. And I heard it. Guitar music. Loud. Smoke on the water. Same damn song Eli had been playing. But this time, someone played it clean. With power. With confidence. A teenager's hands, clearly. It was his son. Austin. Greg's son was in there playing the exact same song he'd tried to humiliate Eli for. Only louder. I stood on the sidewalk frozen, gripping the leash. My dog looked up at me like something was wrong. He was right. That's when I decided. I wasn't going to call CPS or throw a tantrum. I was going to destroy that guitar, and I was going to do it without touching a thing in their house. Started watching. Not obsessively. Just enough to learn their routine. Austin practiced guitar every weekday around 5:30 p.m. His window was usually open. Sometimes I'd hear him repeat the same riff over and over. He was decent, but not great. He had a teacher, an older guy, early 50s, beard, blue Subaru. He'd park across the street and walk in with a worn black case slung over his shoulder. That detail mattered. Because that meant lessons were happening off the books. No formal music school. Probably paid in cash. I did some digging. Asked a few subtle questions at the music store on Pines. Took my time. Didn't even bring up the Masons at first. Just said my nephew might want a guitar teacher. Guy behind the counter rattled off a few names, including Rob from over in Green Acres, teaches out of people's houses. Drives a beat-up Subaru. I smiled. That was my guy. I made a call, pretending to be a different parent, used a fake name and a new Google Voice number. Told him I'd seen good reviews, asked if he was licensed and insured. He gave me a little laugh. Lady, I've been playing 30 years. I don't need a license to teach a few kids guitar. That was all I needed. I started logging every lesson. Day, time, how long he stayed. Then I called the city zoning department, anonymously. Said a man was running an unlicensed business out of a residential area, coming and going all week. I gave them the address. Then I made another call, to the IRS tip line. It felt cold. But I remembered Eli's face after the CPS visit. I remembered the way he shut down, how he looked at his guitar like it had betrayed him. Greg Mason didn't care about rules. He just wanted control. So I used the rules against him. It took a few weeks. Nothing happened right away. I didn't expect it to. But then, one day, no Subaru. Next day, still no lesson. A week went by. 2. Then one afternoon, I saw Greg outside pacing. Phone to his ear, yelling. Not like usual. This was different. Real anger. Desperate. Austin came outside that same evening. Sat on the porch. No guitar. Just stared at the street. I saw his shoulders slump, like something had broken inside him. Good. Then came the real twist. One morning, I saw a city vehicle park outside their house. Guy in a vest walked up and taped something to their front door. A notice. I waited till they left and took a walk past. Zoning violation, cease and desist, unauthorized business activity in residential zone. I grinned. But it wasn't over. A few days later, Austin knocked on our door. I opened it, cautious. Hey, he said. Is Eli home? My stomach dropped. He looked different. Nervous. Awkward. Like he hated being there. Eli came to the door. They talked for a minute. I stood back but listened. Then I heard Austin say, I didn't know my dad called CPS. I swear. I only found out 'cause he was mad the teacher stopped coming. I'm sorry. For real. Eli didn't say much. Just nodded. Then Austin looked at me and said, Can you teach me guitar? I didn't answer him right away. I just looked at him, this kid who was part of the reason my son gave up something he loved. I was still angry. But I saw something in his face. Not pride. Not arrogance. Just regret. Eli glanced at me, unsure. "Come inside," I said finally. We sat at the kitchen table. I made them both lemonade, more to buy myself time than anything. Austin kept fidgeting with the straw, couldn't sit still. "I know you don't owe me anything," he said, barely meeting my eyes. "But I really liked learning guitar. And now my dad says I can't have lessons until we move or find someone else outside the city. But I don't even care about the lessons anymore. I just want to play." My son stayed quiet, watching him. I didn't trust Austin. Not yet. But I remembered being a kid. I remembered feeling stuck under a parent's shadow, not knowing how to get out. "I'm not a teacher," I said. "But Eli still remembers some stuff. Maybe he can show you." Austin looked surprised, like he hadn't expected me to say yes. "I guess," Eli said with a small shrug. He looked unsure, but he didn't say no. They went to Eli's room. I stayed close, listening. At first, silence. Then a few chords. A little bit of the same riff, "Smoke on the Water." It felt surreal. I stood in the hall, thinking, trying to make sense of it. Then things got weird. That night, Greg Mason came to our door. Not knocking. Pounding. I opened it, but didn't step outside. He was red-faced, jaw clenched, fists like bricks. "You got something to say to me, say it to my face," he growled. I didn't answer. "You think you're clever? You think you can sneak around behind my back, ruin my son's life?" "Your son's fine," I said, keeping my voice even. "He came here on his own. You sent the city. You called the damn government. I didn't make the rules, Greg. You did that to yourself." His voice dropped to a low growl. "He's not allowed here anymore. Don't talk to him. Don't let him near your kid." And then he said something that made my blood boil. "You try to act like a decent man, but you're just another coward hiding behind your kid." I didn't rise to it. I just shut the door. Next morning, there were muddy footprints on our porch. Our trash cans had been knocked over. Nothing stolen, nothing broken. Just enough to rattle us. Austin didn't come by again. Eli didn't say anything, but he was different. Restless. Angry in a quiet way. A week later, he walked into the living room holding his guitar. He sat down and started playing. Loudly. The same riff. Over and over. I said nothing. 10 minutes later, we heard a thump against the wall. Eli kept playing. Then came the yell. "Turn that crap down." But this time Eli didn't flinch. He looked over at me and said, "He can call whoever he wants." And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about a guitar anymore. The next few days felt tense. Eli kept playing. Every evening. Not out of spite, but with purpose. The same way you train a muscle after it's been injured. He wasn't great yet, but he was getting better fast. Greg didn't like it. Every time Eli played, we'd hear something, pounding on the wall, shouting through the open window, threats thrown like stones. But we didn't stop. Until one night, about 9 p.m., I looked out the window and saw red and blue lights bouncing off the neighbor's garage. 2 police cars. I stepped outside just in time to see Greg arguing with 2 officers on his porch. His wife stood behind him, arms crossed tight. The cops looked irritated. One was taking notes. The other kept trying to calm Greg down. I walked to the end of our driveway, staying quiet. One of the officers saw me and said, "You the neighbor?" I nodded. "You playing guitar over there?" "No, sir. My son is. For about 20 minutes a day." Greg exploded. "It's all day. It's a damn concert every night. I've logged it, every single time. It's harassment, he's a kid, I cut in. He's playing a guitar. In his house. Greg turned toward me, finger out. You're doing this to me. You think you're smart. You called zoning, you reported the teacher, you're trying to ruin my son. One of the officers stepped between us. Sir, you made a noise complaint. We're here about that. Not all this. Turns out, Greg had called the police 5 times in 2 weeks. Each time, for excessive noise by a minor. Each time, nothing was found to be illegal. The last one, tonight, pushed it too far. That officer turned to him and said, "You call again without cause, it's harassment. Do you understand?" Greg didn't answer. The cops left. Greg stood there, shaking. And then I saw Austin. Watching from the window. Face blank. Like the part of him that still looked up to his father had just burned out. The next morning, Austin was sitting on our porch. He didn't say anything when I opened the door. "Everything all right?" I asked. He shook his head. He broke it. Broke what? My guitar. Snapped the neck. Threw it in the trash. Eli came to the door beside me. Austin looked up at him, then back at me. He told me I wasn't allowed to play ever again. Said music was for weak people. Neither of us said anything. Then Eli did something that surprised me. He went to his room, came back with his old guitar, the pawn shop one. The one he hadn't touched since the CPS visit until recently. He held it out to Austin. "Here," he said. "You can use this one." Austin looked at me, unsure. I nodded. He took it like it was glass. Weeks passed. Eli and Austin started practicing together in the backyard on weekends. Austin got better. Eli got more confident. The music got louder, stronger, more sure. Greg stopped coming outside. People started to notice. One neighbor walked by and said, "Nice to hear something joyful for once." Another brought cookies and said she loved hearing the boys play. Then one Saturday, Greg's house went dark. Sunday morning, a moving truck was in the driveway. No warning. No notice. Gone. He didn't even say goodbye. Just like that, the man who tried to silence my son ran from the sound of what he tried to destroy. I won't pretend I'm proud of every step I took. I could have handled things differently. Maybe I shouldn't have called zoning. Maybe I shouldn't have gotten that teacher flagged. But I'll tell you this, I never once lied. I never once raised my voice. I didn't break a thing. All I did was defend my son's right to play music in his own home. And in the end, the man who tried to break him? He broke himself.